Welcome to the Crash the Pond podcast. It is a Monday draft lottery edition of the show. And I wish that I could start off the show by telling everyone that the Anaheim Ducks made it into the lottery and are picking in the top three, picking first overall. Not the case, but I think a lot of Ducks fans who have maybe gotten soured on the lottery process over the last few years will be happy to know that the Ducks didn't drop back. That's maybe the biggest one of them all at this point.
Yeah, because now I'm thinking back. 2019 was the first year the Ducks were really in the lottery. And what was it? Chicago jumped them. That was the year Chicago jumped to third overall and took Kirby Dach, right?
I don't know.
Do you really not remember that at all? Wow.
Not off the top of my head.
And then 2020 didn't... who ended up winning the 2020 draft? That was Kings and... So no one jumped the Ducks, I think, in that one. I think it was the Kings and the the Rangers. The Rangers did.
The Rangers jumped, yeah.
But the Rangers were ahead of the Ducks in this, or lower than the Ducks. Better draft odds, basically.
Yeah.
And then, that year. Now I need to look this up. Now I should have done this as research.
You're trying to pull up these details that aren't super important.
The
point is the Ducks didn't drop back. That's what matters. They're picking 10th overall. It's a draft class that's intriguing. There's not the kind of generational talent up top. But I think that at 10th overall, the takeaway is that they are going to be able to add another, should they make the pick, they're going to add another really good prospect to a pool that's one of the best in the NHL.
Yeah.
That is the takeaway, not who jumped who in 2019 and what have you.
Fair point. Wow. I just feel the daggers.
Shaming you.
Feel the daggers coming my way. No, you're spot on, though, with that. That kind of looking at this draft, starting to do my research, starting to look into it, it feels like, and I've mentioned this a couple times, it feels like there's a 1 and then maybe a couple people that might be considered in that 2 range, and then just kind of this squishy 3 to 10 range or 4 to 10 range, where some people may have a guy 10th on their board, some people may have that same guy 4th. And it really, I've mentioned this before, but it really reminds me of the 2019 draft, where Trevor Zegras was, by some people, projected to go 3rd. He was the 3rd most skilled player on the board by some people, and he fell to the Ducks all the way at 9. Mm-hmm. And so this feels like that, where it's really going to fall in the scouting departments of all these teams once they kind of get past Cooley and Wright to be able to kind of sift through the players and figure out where they're going to go. Obviously, there's going to be certain players that certain people like more than others. Slavkovsky is a guy that's really risen to the top of some draft boards. But the thing that we don't know is kind of how do these teams rate him? How do the teams rate Joachim Kemmel and what he did early on in the season versus how he fell off? How do people rate Brad Lambert with the stardom that he had 2 years ago and to his horrible season this year? And so I think it's going to be a really fascinating draft to watch. And I think that, at the end of the day, is what I'm excited for. And while the Ducks may not be in this prime position where they're 5th, 6th, kind of where they've been the last couple of years, this is a draft where being 10th isn't the end of the world, because you're forcing, I mean, it's funny, the same type of thing has kind of happened with the Zegras draft, for instance. Mm-hmm. The other teams essentially make your decision for you, and that's not necessarily a bad thing with how NHL teams are run. As we've seen with that draft, Philip Broberg was taken 1 pick before Trevor Zegras was.
Yeah.
You think that?
That's a great point.
Do you think Edmonton would love to have a redo and have Trevor Zegras on their team right now instead of Philip Broberg, who I believe is not playing for them right now? So you're forcing other teams to make the pick, and they will make mistakes. And so you wish that you didn't have to rely on those other teams making mistakes, but they're going to make them. This is the NHL.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think the Ducks are going to make this pick?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they are.
Really?
I think it's more likely that they make this one than the later round pick. I could see them trading that one.
You think that do you think that's out of the question that they trade it for, let's say, a Jacob Chychrun? In a Jacob Chychrun deal.
Correct. Or something. I don't think that they would trade. I mean, they could trade 10th overall for Chychrun. That could be on the books. I don't think that you can really rule out anything, I guess, the more that I think about it. So I'll backtrack a little bit on that initial statement. I think it's more likely than not that they're going to make the pick, but I think that it's a definite possibility where Pat Verbeek is trying to upgrade this team. His priority to me is finding guys within the Trevor Zegras age window. And so if that requires him to flip this 10th overall pick, I think he will be willing to do that.
Right. Yeah, I think that takeaway is the correct one, which is that it's hard to really know. And Pat Verbeek has been kind of vocal in that he will be that's really the entire takeaway of this end of season is that the Ducks are going to try to improve their roster in the offseason. Now, let me ask you this. If it were up to you, do you make the pick?
I think it's a draft day decision.
Wow. So you're giving me a no comment there.
Mainly because you
I guess what would it take? What would it take? Who's the player that entices you enough to trade this pick?
I think Jacob Chikrin is maybe in that mix, although I've fallen off of him a little bit lately, but I think maybe someone in that profile. I think it just has to be someone that is within the age range of 20 to 22 years old. I think that's the key aspect there is the age and obviously the profile of the player. And I don't think I really have a good idea of the player off the top of my head right now. But I think if it comes up, I wouldn't be opposed to trading it in the correct deal. I think Kevin Fiala, as Sith Lord Buscemi brings up in our Twitch chat, I mean, I guess that you would have to part with it. No, you wouldn't be parting with this.
You trade it for the rights, I guess? Like,
maybe.
How would that work?
Yeah, or because this year's draft wouldn't be part of the RFA or offer sheet that you would give. But the reason why I'm kind of saying it would be a draft day decision is that, like I said with this draft, there's going to be teams that make mistakes. And so the guy that you could have as 3rd overall could be available to you at 10th. And so I think what you have to do is you have to end up figuring out your own draft board, putting that together, running through the entire process, which the Ducks are going to do, no doubt. They're going to do that regardless if they trade the pick or if they don't, or if they keep the pick. Mm-hmm. And I think that the most prudent way to kind of approach this is kind of maybe start negotiating, figuring out deals, and if something pops up, but you also kind of want to wait to see how the draft plays out, to see if that guy ends up falling that you like so much, and you end up with a Trevor Zegras situation again for this team.
Yeah. I, philosophically speaking, would lean towards making the pick because I think that the Ducks are right at that cutoff point where this class is still going to give you an impact level player as opposed to maybe just like a really good depth player. And I think that the Ducks can have it both ways where they can improve their roster for, for the upcoming season and next 2 seasons. And by the same token, picking 10th overall, they can get a guy who maybe won't be on the team next year or the year after, but that once this team is fully formed can kind of come in and give you that next wave of a really good player who's on an ELC.
Yeah.
So I would lean towards making the pick. I agree with you, though, that it is kind of a draft day decision because if there's a really good deal out there, if it lands you a really upper echelon player that kind of vaults you into that next level of teams in the NHL, it's hard to say no to that. But my I guess bias would be towards making the pick. Yeah,
and I think that's a good point. And I think what we've seen lately, just in general with the league, I think a general trend overall is, and while Pat Verbeek has said he wants to let his guys marinate, all that different type of stuff, you can only say that for so long when the league is becoming younger and younger, right? At a certain point, you have to adapt to that as guys are pushing their way in. Guys are more, and I think a large reason for that is guys are more NHL ready at a younger age due to the fact that they have skills coach at such a young age. And so that's really kind of in some ways, I think, what's pushing it. And so we're seeing more and more of these early first round picks are NHL ready within a year or two. Like sometimes even right away. Look at Anton Lundell, who's drafted last year. Or sorry, no, Anton Lundell was
2020.
Yeah, 2020. He was the Drysdale draft.
Yeah, he was.
Are we sure about that? Now I'm second guessing myself on this. Regardless, we're seeing guys jump into the league right away. Okay,
12th overall.
Cole Sillinger's the guy that jumped into the league right away. That was a middle round pick or middle of the first round pick. And so that's kind of where I was going with it. Is that you're seeing guys a year, even right away, being NHL ready. And so I think that's kind of goes to your point, right? Of getting a guy that's going to be on his ELC, be ready to make that jump, be ready to be in the on this team. I think that's definitely a factor here.
Yeah, exactly. I know that there is kind of this rush a little bit to get the Ducks into the playoffs next season, and because people are tired of watching this team fail to do so and kind of sputter out at the end. But I really think that they're not yet at this point where shipping off, top 10 picks to improve your current team is super advisable unless you're getting back someone who really does tightly and neatly fit that age range that we've been talking about with Zegras, Drysdale, Terry, kind of early to mid 20s. But how many of those guys are truly available, right? Like that's I think where, to me, you just make the pick. But
I mean,
we'll see.
I'll put it like this. The Ducks have had, let me think about this off the top of my head. This will be their 6th in the last 10 to 20 years that I can really think of off the top of my head. Top 10 overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
It was because they had Richie, Lindholm, then you have Zegras, Drysdale, McTavish, and now this one.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I can't really think of the last time they would have had something that high. And so I think that just really puts into perspective kind of how once you get competitive, this high of a pick doesn't come around that often. And so this pick can really help you push into that next range.
Right, exactly. And I think that if you look, because you brought up how the good teams in the NHL are structured, I think that what you've seen with teams like, let's say, Tampa, is that they always seem to have that next guy, right, that next wave of talent. Of course, they don't obtain them with top 10 picks, but they always seem to have reinforcements. Even Toronto, and the kind of depth that they've amassed. I just have that series on my mind because of the crazy game that was today.
Yeah.
But that's what you see around for the good teams around the league is they manage that depth really well. And I don't know. I mean, I would be really surprised if the Ducks traded this pick.
Yep,
I would be surprised if that.
Agreed.
But yeah, and I think that again, it's not the sexy kind of armchair GM answer, because I think a lot of people again are in this rush to see the team really make a step forward right away. But just make the pick, get the player. And the Ducks have a bunch of additional draft picks from the trade deadline. Again, this is why you do things like these, to go and make those trades. And they have an excess of prospects, right? So there's still they still have plenty of ammunition to go out and make aggressive deals this summer. They just don't have to sacrifice a premium pick in the process.
Yeah. And I mean, sorry, I'm just kind of now thinking about who the Ducks could potentially take. I'm sure we're gonna get asked about we're gonna have plenty of time. And an interesting name to me, and this is just purely looking at size and thinking about how NHL teams look at that in terms of prospects. Matthew Savoy, he is 5'10", and he is one of the most skilled players in this draft. I could very easily see teams being wary of his size, and that could be a guy that could fall all the way to the Ducks. And, I mean, here's a question for you on this that's popping in my head. Do you care at all about position at this point in time?
For the Ducks?
Yes.
That's a great question, and I think it's something that I haven't given a ton of thought to. I mean, right now the Ducks are in a position where they've traded 2 cornerstone defensemen in Josh Manson and Hampus Lindholm. So now you could argue that the blue line is an area of need.
Correct.
But I still think this team just needs as much offensive talent as possible. They don't really have that much depth right now on the current roster offensively. You saw it this year, right? If it wasn't the Zegras line or Terry line getting it done, that was kind of it on a lot of nights. And so I would still be in favor of trying to bring in more game-breaking offensive talent. But again, my philosophy, as always, is best player available.
Yeah, and so I think the players that I think will probably be available, because I think the defensemen are probably going to be taken, both Nemec and Jiricek. I think both those guys are going to be
after the top 5.
Yeah, and I think Slafkovsky at this point. Slafkovsky's an interesting one.
He seems to be a lock for the top 3 now.
He does, but we'll see kind of how that plays out. I think that he probably will be. I think the top 3 will probably be Lambert, Slafkovsky, or not Lambert, Wright, Slafkovsky, Cooley, and then probably the 2 defensemen, and then it's kind of anyone's game from there in terms of everyone after that. But everyone,
I think we can agree that Columbus will not pick who we expect them to pick.
100%. and so, but after that, it's a lot of forwards, and so I think that the Ducks are going to have essentially guys that fall to them because for various reasons, whether it is they were a highly touted prospect that fell off a little bit. Whether it is a guy that had a great start to the season fell off, and so that first one was Brad Lambert. This one's Joakim Kemmel. And then Matthew Savoy is a guy that may fall because of his size, and we've seen how Cole Caulfield's done in Montreal as a result of him, even though he slid.
Although not the same caliber of production, though.
No. But still, like it's a guy that's falling because he's smaller. Like that's the knock on Savoy from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think the other thing with Savoy that people seem to not like about him is just the fact, like his hockey sense, just his ability to actually use his skills on the ice. But he's extremely productive, and he's a guy who can help you. So that is the kind of profile that the Ducks they need more of. I mean, the thing with the Ducks, and I think I said this during the Drysdale draft, is that getting a defenseman to me isn't ideal. It's not what I would do, and I don't think that's what they're going to end up doing, just the way the board is structured. But they're a team that's missed the playoffs for 4 consecutive years now for a reason, because they're not very good. And so bringing in more good players, regardless of position, that's what matters the most.
God.
Like they can't make a bad pick.
I feel like this draft, as I'm looking at Corey Pronman's mock draft versus elite prospects.
Well, that's the thing with. Sorry, go ahead.
I feel like this draft overall is going to be fascinating to watch, just because the mock drafts are wild. But like, this feels like the most different that I've seen in a long, long time. Because like EP Rinkside, for instance, has Frank Nazar as the 4th overall player on their board. And granted, this was from March, but they have
they have him at 4th. Wow.
They have Frank Nazar at 4th. Wow.
And I think Pronman at 13th.
Pronman has him at 14th.
14th, yeah. Well, but it doesn't. Here's the thing, though. I mean, we've been doing this song and dance now for a few years. How many drafts have we done? 2019 was the first one?
2018 would have been the first one. 2018 was the first year of the show.
Oh, that was the Lundestrom draft.
That was the Lundestrom draft.
Oh, man.
I remember that one when we were all like, what?
We had to crank out an article about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was the Lundestrom Tracy draft, right? Or was Tracy the year after?
Tracy
was 19. Tracy was 19.
Tracy was 19. Tracy was the same draft as Zegras.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Sith Lord Buscemi saying that Craig Button has Brad Lambert at 35.
So we've been doing the song and dance now, and I think if I can take anything away from the research we've done each and every year, it's that when you're looking at guys like Corey Pronman or Craig Button, more so Corey Pronman though, to me you're getting the feel of like what it seems like the weather is for the industry, what teams are probably going to do. Now, of course, the one he posted today is beat writers, so not completely trustworthy.
True, that's a good point.
But the point is, like, I'm sure he's kind of feeding these beat writers information. And so anyway, just moving forward, if you're someone listening to this and you're looking at Pronman mock drafts or ranking, to me, that's more telling you what teams around the league are thinking. And then when you're looking at sites like EP Rinkside or other outlets, to me, that's more of a true kind of independent talent evaluation.
I'm looking right now at Bob McKenzie's also. Like, this is wild. Bob McKenzie has Savoy at 4, Slavkovsky at 5, Miroshnichenko at 6, Yurchek at 7, Yurov at 8, Nemec at 9, Geeky at 10, Lambert at 11, Nazar all the way down at 14. And then I was looking at Craig Button's. Craig Button, for instance, had Savoy all the way at 17. And McKenzie has him at, what did I say, 5, 4?
Yeah.
Something around. Like, this is just all over.
Good to know this is an exact science where, we can all agree on talent.
Craig Button has Frank Nazar at 24.
Wow.
Versus EP Rinkside at 5. This draft, I feel like, is just wild.
I'm going to say this.
I'm really excited for this draft just to be able to look at these after the fact and see who was right and who was wrong.
Well, so I do want to give a lot of credit, and I respect the experience that some of those veteran guys have. But to me, when I go and read sources like EP Rinkside, for those who don't know, Elite Prospects, it's their editorial site. I kind of trust that a little bit more, just because I think that they are more in tune with where the game is headed and more of the skill-based component where they're really evaluating the actual talent in front of them. and there's less concern about the old school stuff.
Well, also
right?
what I like, and you and I both always look at their what is it? Their draft guide that they put out each year, and it's really in depth. I think
very detailed,
very in depth. And the thing that I like so much about it is it's not just one person. And I think that's the most important.
It's an army of people,
It versus a lot of these draft rankings, like Prodman. It's specifically him, and same thing with Bob McKenzie and Craig Button. They're talking. Don't worry, they're talking, or don't think that it's just them, but they are. Or it is just them, but they are talking to other people. They're talking to scouts, talking to other people within the industry. But the EP Rinkside one is a team of people that have seen all these games, put together their own scouting reports, and then talking to each other, coming to a consensus together to put together this draft ranking. And that, to me, is why I really put value into that, because it's a lot of these guys that have put a lot of time and effort, people that are more analytic savvy than others that have tracked data and use all that to figure out their ranking.
Yeah, I guess philosophically they just line up more with how I see the game, and I trust their rankings because they show their work. They talk specifically about why a player is a good skater, right? Because you often hear oh, he's a great skater, he's fast, but we don't really know what that means mechanically, and they really get into those details. So they're not a sponsor, by the way. We're pumping their tires here.
We should reach out. We'll reach out to them.
But really a great resource.
100%.
Yeah. But what is interesting, though, is our good old buddy Byron Bader, who we bring up a lot this time of year. When you get into his model, looking at NHLE, which for those of you who don't know, NHL equivalency, so basically projecting what is the probability of a player becoming an NHL star, so basically a top 6 or a top line producing talent, or an NHLer, so playing X amount of games, and how does that project based on the number of points that they have gotten in a specific league and at a specific age? And what's interesting is that in this draft, I'll just go through the top 5 star probabilities. So number 1 is Danila Yurov, who we haven't even discussed yet.
No.
Who we have no idea what his status is going to be in the draft due to the ongoing Russia situation with the IIHF and everything there. We don't know, but he's torched the MHL, the Russian Junior League, but has basically been a bench warmer in the KHL, so hasn't produced there. But even still, because of that production, he's the highest rated in that category for this draft class. After him, you have a 10% drop-off to Shane Wright at number 2, Simon Nemec at number 3, 57%, Logan Cooley at 56%, and then Lane Hudson at 55%. So completely all over the place. But I do kind of like looking at that because it just cuts through everything, all of the observations, and it's just looking at just raw numbers and regressing those based on past history. So it's interesting.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a reason why we've had Byron on this podcast in the past.
Yeah, because it's I think it's fun to be able to look at prospects. I wish that there were more data points. I wish it wasn't just production and age and league, but it is interesting to look at players and just have a completely unbiased view, right? Because it's just their numbers. There's nothing else.
You know what's going to be fun with this draft now that I think about it also?
Mm-hmm.
There's a high chance that a guy that we want the Ducks to take at 10, or that we think they should take at 10, is going to be available for their second first-round pick if they take it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I mean, remember the 2020 draft, Jacob Perreault?
Yeah.
Right? Same thing.
Yeah, exactly. You thought he was going to go top 10?
No, did I think that? I didn't think he'd go 27.
Yeah,
I'll say that. But yeah, it'll be really fascinating. I'm excited for this draft. I'm excited to kind of gear up for it now that the season is 100% over for the Ducks.
Yep. And
there's very little else to talk about.
Yep. All right. You want to have a brief word from our sponsor?
Yeah.
Sure. All right. So this episode is brought to you by Green Chef. So Green Chef is a CCOF certified meal kit company. They make eating well easy with plans to fit every lifestyle, whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, or just looking to eat more balanced meal. Green Chef offers a range of recipes to suit your preference. And so all their stuff is premium and organic. So with fresh produce and premium proteins and organic ingredients, you can trust Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for eating well. With Green Chef, you get organic ingredients and sustainably sourced produce so you can feel great about what you're eating and how it got to your table. It's also so convenient and easy. They make cooking easy so you can spend less time stressing and more time enjoying delicious home-cooked meals. Green Chef's pre-made and pre-measured sauces, dressings, and spices get you more chef-curated flavor in less time. You can avoid long lines at the grocery store. Green Chef is so convenient with pre-portioned, easy-to-follow recipes that are delivered right to your door. It's so sustainable. Green Chef is they're the most sustainable meal kit and offsets 100% of their carbon footprint. And they also offer 24 always changing recipes to choose from every week, so you never get bored. And like I said previously, they have meal kits for every lifestyle you have, whether you're keto plus paleo, vegan, vegetarian, fast and fit, Mediterranean, or gluten-free. They've got something for you, whether you're looking for carb-conscious, gluten-free, plant-based, or calorie-conscious options, or you just want to have delicious, balanced meals. They have flavorful, feel-good recipes that are sure to satisfy. So, Felix, what's on the menu this week for Green Chef?
Baked penne with sausage.
Penne with sausage. That sounds delicious.
I really want you to find someone on this earth who doesn't like baked penne with sausage, because it's pretty freaking delicious. It's mozzarella, parmesan, mushrooms, peas, and roasted red peppers. It's a comforting Italian-style pasta bake. It's ready in just 25 minutes, so whether you're busy or you really want to plan it out and have a nice meal, it's going to work for you either way. It's super simple ingredients. It's delicious. I've enjoyed it. Everyone loves pasta, and you should definitely check that out, and it'll fit your diet. You can make it work however you want.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, some other things that are on the menu. They've got a blister tomato and feta cavatappi. They've got some enchilada spiced turkey bowls, pesto shrimp and couscous bowls. And this one is the one that really flagged my eyes. The surf and turf with sun-dried tomatoes.
Yeah, that looks good.
That looks absolutely delicious. So, Green Chef, their meals are absolutely amazing. So you can go to greenchef.com/CTP130 and use code CTP130 to get $130 off plus free shipping. Once again, that's greenchef.com/CTP130 to get $130 off plus free shipping. Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well.
Yep, go check them out. So, anything else on the draft? Or I should say the draft lottery today.
Do you want to take your victory lap?
I mean, it's bittersweet, right? Because it took one of the most depressing seasons of Montreal Canadiens history to see the Canadiens ultimately get to this point where they get the first overall pick. But I got to say, this is the most confident I have felt as a Canadiens fan, just in terms of the long-term trajectory that I ever have as a fan of this team, my entire life. That new GM, great management team, great coach, some good young players, and now the first overall pick. I don't know if they'll pick Shane Wright. Kent Hughes wouldn't commit to that publicly, which is interesting. I mean, it makes sense. Didn't close the door on trading the pick either. So it's going to be fascinating. I kind of want to, I wish there was a way to bet who's going to go first overall.
There's got to be.
I'm curious what the line is.
There is a way.
What the odds are for not Shane Wright.
Yeah.
Like Shane Wright versus the field.
Lewis asked if you got your flowers yet.
No, unfortunate. No one gives me flowers around here.
I mean, I feel like me saying, do you want to talk about this, is me giving you your flowers. If you want to take a victory lap.
Well, I am happy. I'm very happy.
Well, we're happy for you. I would have been much happier if it was the Ducks first and then Montreal second, I guess.
I would not have been happy with that.
I know.
Although, I think if the Ducks went first, they 1,000% pick Shane Wright.
Probably.
No, absolutely.
Probably.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no way we could know.
Can you imagine, though, a 1-2-3 punch of Shane Wright, Trevor Zegras, and Mason McTavish down the middle?
I mean, I'm picturing Matthew Savoy, Trevor Zegras, and Mason McTavish down the middle.
I mean, I know that maybe people aren't that excited about Shane Wright, but Shane Wright,
it would have been good.
Matthew Savoy, there's a bit of a drop off there.
A little bit. All right, so yeah, I mean, I think we're just gonna get in some questions. This is gonna be a very question-heavy episode.
I did want to say, some Ducks players going to the World Championship.
Oh yeah, I saw that today and kind of missed a lot of it.
Feel like we should give them their flowers.
Go for it.
There's two things. Forgot. Ducks have a new assistant GM.
Correct. Did we not
Rob
talk about
DiMaio.
that yet? No, we didn't.
No.
That
No,
broke
we
after.
didn't.
Yeah, and Todd Marchand.
Yeah, and so, yeah, did we not talk about this last week?
No, it broke after the episode.
That's right. Yeah, May 3rd. When was May 3rd? It was last Tuesday.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. We have not talked about it. So, let's talk about that because that is interesting to me. The Ducks name a new assistant GM, Rob DiMaio. He comes in. He was the director of pro scouting and the director of pro personnel for the St. Louis Blues. And I think that what's interesting is that for the Ducks, we've heard so much over the years about how well they've drafted, how well they've been able to pluck talent from the later rounds. We haven't heard as much about player development, though. And what came along with this news was the fact that Todd Marchand was out. Much less fanfare about that one. But Marchand's tenure in player development comes to an end. And now, I mean, this is kind of, to me, maybe the first big, okay, this is a Pat Verbeek guy that's coming in a pretty major role because he's going to be handling, right, the player development aspect, and he's going to be the GM of the San Diego Gulls. So he's going to have his fingerprints all over the player development side for the Ducks. And I think if you look at what the Blues have done over the last few years, I mean, first off, they've won a Stanley Cup. They've done it with a lot of homegrown talent, or they've been able to use that talent to go and get better players. I feel like this is a good hire, or at least it's a hire that's pointing in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the key aspect there. You look at the development of the players in the St. Louis Blues organization. You look at the Jordan Kyries of the world, the Robert Thomases of the world. You look at these guys that weren't necessarily, I mean, I'm not quite sure what pick Jordan Kyrie was, but I'll look it up very quickly. But these guys weren't like highly, highly touted prospects. Jordan Kyrie was taken 35th overall. And so it's not as if he was this high-end pick. He was a second-round pick, and he's become an absolute fantastic player for them. Robert Thomas was taken 20th overall. And these guys have become legit NHLers. And like I said with Kyrou, he's a legit NHL star at this point. Like, he's really scoring at a high level, high rate. And so that's what you want. In some ways, it's a mixture of things, right? There's only so much scouting can do and from the amateur side with drafting, but there's also the development side of things. Mm-hmm. And I think you've been the one to point this out a lot, is that the development side of things is really lacking and has been for the Ducks for the last little bit.
So people on Twitter, I feel like people on Twitter is like the third member of this show because it gets brought up every single episode. But when this news broke and I tweeted about the fact that I didn't think that the Ducks have done a good job developing and that getting rid of Todd Marchand was a good thing, a lot of people didn't like that. And, I got accused of having fantasies that every first round pick, every draft pick is going to become a star. No, that's not. I do have fantasies, but that's not one of them. And so what I would say, though, is that it's not about that. It's not about turning every single player into a star. It doesn't have to become a Jordan Kyrou. But what I look for when guys are drafted and once they get into the pro side, whether it's in the AHL or eventually the NHL, is their game expanding? Is their game improving? Are the things that they're good at already refining? And are the things that they're bad at kind of coming up to speed? And to be honest with you, how many Ducks of these younger Ducks players can you really say that that's happened with? I mean, to me, I look at, for example, a guy like Max Comtois. The way that Max Comtois plays today, to me, is almost exactly the same way he played as when he first came in, right? He's this guy who doesn't really skate that well. He kind of has this weird way of holding his stick, right? There's just not a lot of like fine skill to his game, and there has been zero development in that respect. I mean, I'm sure he's gotten a little better, right? He's grown as an NHL player, but it almost just feels like a result of natural aging curves where he's just getting better as he's figuring the league out. Then, I mean, you look at different guys like, for example, Sam Steele, right? He's another one of these guys in this group where, I'm not expecting these players to become stars, but I need to see some kind of growth in their game. And Sam Steele, for a lot of his tenure with the Ducks, has almost felt like he's gone the other way, where he's gone backwards and he's gotten worse over time. And for him, this was maybe the first year where I could see a little bit of growth, but he's 24 now, right? It's like, okay, you would expect that by now. And then you go down the list. I mean, you look at a guy like Josh Mahura. To me, hasn't really grown at all. You look at a guy like Isaac Lundestrom. I mean, he's kind of the same player for the most part that he was when he came in, right? The whole thing that they talk about with him every time publicly is, oh, well, when he came in, he skated backwards a lot, he curled back a lot, and now he doesn't anymore. Okay, well, that's pretty much it. That's the only difference.
Well, we talked about
so that's what I'm talking about. It's not about them becoming stars. It's just, is their game expanding? And I haven't seen that.
And we've talked about this a lot with Isaac Lundestrom, where his game, the way he plays, the way he enters the zone, the way he circles, all that stuff, it's meant for the big ice. It's not meant for NHL size ice. And the fact that they were able to, I mean, I feel like Dallas Eakins said this. He's like, that player, Isaac, more than any other player that he's seen when he came in, was not meant for North American ice. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he's kind of acknowledged that, he said he's come a long way. And while sure, he's not circling back or things like that, but his game is still like the European style. It's still meant for the bigger ice. And so they recognize that issue, and they still haven't done enough to help him improve past it. And I think that really keys in on the player development side of things. And I just think that I also think on this side with Todd Marchand, just simply kind of finishing this point off before moving back to Rob DiMaio, but I think this just kind of gets rid of Bob Murray's hires.
You went there.
I did.
I thought about going there, but I didn't know if that was kosher for the show.
But I think in some ways that is a part of this. It's turning over a new leaf, and we've now seen that with Pat Verbeek. Dave Nonis gone. Dave Nonis was for sure a Bob Murray guy.
Yeah,
and
he was a lieutenant.
Todd Marchand was acquired by the regime that started with Brian Burke that Bob Murray was a part of.
He is a Murray guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so retired, and then eventually became a scout I forgot what he started as, but eventually became the position that he's at now.
Mm-hmm.
And
wasn't
true, fair.
Yeah.
Good. Sorry about that. And so I think that that's a part of this, and I think that we can't necessarily ignore that, because in some ways this is Pat Verbeek taking out the guys that he doesn't necessarily see as his guys and bringing in guys that more suit what he likes. And so it's both a look at what the development path has been, and also kind of bringing in his own guys and clearing out the old regime. And while maybe you would look at Martin Madden, but I think that just goes to show that Martin Madden, the respect, kind of what that Verbeek being a scout and that kind of being the path that he really went down, how much he respects what Martin Madden has done and the type of work that he's done. And so I just think it's not a coincidence that we're seeing these guys leave and Pat Verbeek bringing in his own guys.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good call, and I do think that it's fun to just see a new GM really starting to put a stamp on the organization, because a lot of people maybe don't appreciate the fact that it's much more than just the GM pulling the strings, for an organization and the way that they make their decisions. It's everything. It's scouting, it's development, it's the analytics side. And so to see Pat Verbeek kind of build that in the way he wants to, it's just going to be interesting to see how it plays out for this team.
Definitely. And one other thing on that is that, do you know who the GM of the goals was going into this year?
Oh, gosh. I feel like I know the answer to this, but it's escaping me. Tell me.
With Rob DiMaio coming in and taking over that role, the prior GM of the goals was Bob Murray.
Well, yeah, why was that the case?
No clue.
Oh, Kings just made it 2-1.
No clue.
Just giving away that I'm watching the game.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's one of those things where this gets a guy there, and also of note, Pat Verbeek, before joining the Ducks, was the GM of the Grand Rapids Griffins. So that was kind of what he was promoted to over summer. So he has experience of being the GM of the AHL team, and I think it's a big position for Rob DiMaio. It's important for him to be in that role, especially with his past position of development. So exciting to see that happen.
Jake, you'll love this. So the Kings just made it 2-1. This is, a game 5, and it was Duncan Keith, a failed clearing attempt where he somehow trips on himself and just turns it blatantly over to the Kings. They come back in on a 2-on-1, and he just doesn't see Adrian Kempe on the weak side, and they score on a one-timer. So Duncan Keith is terrible.
He is bad.
Oh, my God. Whew. Anyway. It's cool to see this progress. It's cool to see things changing. Doesn't mean it's going to work out. Doesn't mean it's going to be great. But at the same time, like I said, like I spelled out, I'm not really a big fan of how the Ducks were doing on the player development side. And now player development is a much bigger job than just one guy.
Correct.
And that's something that maybe we give Todd Marchand a little slack for, is that their player development staff was pretty limited. I mean, it was Francois Beauchemin and I believe
Lucas Sabiza came in this year.
Larry Barron as their skills guy. Like, it was a pretty tight run ship. There are not a whole lot of guys there. And you look at teams like the Leafs and the Habs just pouring money into those divisions, those departments, whatever you want to call them. The Ducks don't quite have the financial might there, but I think that they need to look at expanding that out even further now.
Yep.
So,
Yep, exactly.
but it's a good first step. And then on the note of guys going to the World Championship, so Max Comtois going to play for Team Canada at the World Championship. Any thoughts on that?
Good for him. He's had a really rough season, shortened in some ways by injury, shortened in some ways by Dallas Eakins, and I think this could be really good for him.
Yeah. Well, so here's the funny thing, though. This was something I was thinking about today. Because last year there was a lot made about the fact that Adam Henrique went to play for Team Canada last summer and played really well.
I forgot about that.
And that kind of turned him around after a tough year. It's a lot like the Troy Terry narrative in a way, where it's like, was he actually having a tough year, or was the team that was in charge of him just not correctly utilizing him and putting him on waivers for no reason? Because now, I mean, same thing with Troy Terry, right? Was it that he didn't have any confidence last year, or that Dallas Eakins just didn't know how to use him? Anyway, but with Max Comtois, though, this year in particular, although I don't think the Ducks handled him correctly at the end of the year by just constantly scratching him, he did not have a good season. And it wasn't just a matter of, well, the team just doesn't get it. And so maybe this does give him that opportunity to bounce back. Outside of that, though, I mean, you've got Lucas Dostal going there, and then you've got Dominic Simone, both for Czech Republic. When did they start calling them Czechia? Like, I know that's
within
been
the
a thing,
last,
but
within the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, that's an interesting shift.
I once saw like a reasoning of it, and it has to do with the fact that it's like you don't call things republic or something like that.
Since when?
I forgot what it was. It was something along those lines, and so Czechia is the proper way to.
I mean, I'm fine with that.
it.
It's just interesting that that's what we're doing now. But hey, whatever.
Are we in the geography portion of this show?
One other thing I wanted to talk about, because you and I spent $30 on this, so I think we have to talk about it. AHL TV.
Oh,
We
yeah.
spent $30 to watch Olin Zellweger get jerked around.
Play 6 minutes.
Yeah. So I want to touch on this briefly, though. We did watch Olin Zellweger make his pro debut for the San Diego Gulls.
Yep.
And I thought he looked great.
Yep.
I mean, it clearly was still in his first game. Clearly there's a lot of room to grow there, but looked comfortable with the puck on his stick. Got a point late in the game. Was able to create offense with the zone entry. Had some good breakouts. I thought he looked comfortable.
Yeah, it's funny when you watch AHL games because, especially when the playoffs.
There's a lot of reasons why that statement is true. But continue.
When you're watching the NHL playoffs and then you jump down to an AHL playoff game, you're reminded about just the quality difference.
There's levels to this.
Yeah, and just the simple pass can't be made by a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
In comparison to the NHL level,
especially the Gulls blue line.
Yeah. But getting back to kind of where I was going with that is that Olin Zellweger, I think you can really tell when a player is a special type of talent in the AHL because they may not end up generating a whole lot, and you can somewhat pinpoint that on just the teammates not thinking the game at the same level as them.
Yeah.
And I think that was something I saw a couple times from Zellweger. And while it's just a couple moments, there was one rush in specific where he's coming up the ice and he dishes the puck off. And I think it was going to be a 2-on-1 or I can't remember. But basically, he's in the neutral zone, doesn't have the puck. And he's clearly has so much space in front of him and is making a fantastic drive through the neutral zone in transition. And the player who was on the goals just couldn't recognize that he had that space and never fed him the puck, and then the puck just kind of died on that guy's stick. And it's those little things that it's just like that recognition to understand that he has the space to jump up in the play, and if he would have got the puck in transition, he would have been able to get into the zone clean and set up a chance. And it's those little things that while Nothing really happened. It's kind of a nothing play, to be honest, because the puck just ends up turning over in the neutral zone. But it's that recognition to jump up in the play right there that's made Olin Zellweger such an exciting player and such an exciting prospect. And so the fact that he's able to do that, and the only thing that really felt like was holding him back in this game outside of coaching kind of babying him was the fact that his teammates just weren't thinking the game at the same level as him. And that's going to happen in the AHL.
I mean, I think it really needs to be called out that Pat Verbeek brought this guy into play. I don't know what the expectation was, what the conversation was between player and team, but Joel Bouchard basically chose to play to have the Gulls play with 5 defensemen for most of that game.
He didn't play on the power play either, which is
didn't play him on the power play. Gave him like 2 shifts in the first period, barely more than 2 in the second. We don't have great data for the AHL, so these numbers aren't precise, but it was just strange, very strange. I mean, you have this guy who clearly can do something that none of your other defensemen can do, which is break the puck out with his feet and with his mind just at a high level, and just really didn't use him. And I understand, okay, if you want to play devil's advocate, that it's game 1 of the playoffs. This guy hasn't played a single game in the AHL yet. Maybe you want to be cautious, but at the end of the day, it's a development league, and these guys got to play to develop.
It's a best of 3 also. Who cares?
If I was Pat Verbeek, I would be pissed about how Bouchard handled him. And then he didn't even play in game 2. So outside of Zellweger, though, who I did think looked really good, regardless of all that. Outside of him, I thought Drew Hellison looked okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't really wowed by him. I think specifically his play without the puck wasn't great in that game that I did watch game 1. Lucas Dostal had a rough time.
Yeah.
I thought Jacob Perreault looked good. But outside of that, I mean, nothing else really popping off the page, though.
Yep, nothing really for me either. So, yeah, the goals were eliminated, though. We should probably mention that.
They got shellacked. Yeah. I mean, they did not look good. No. They looked very poorly coached.
Yeah.
I mean, they just had like no structure to their game. So.
And maybe we see a clearing of house from Pat Verbeek after that. Who knows?
Yeah, possibly.
But, all right, want to jump into questions?
Sure.
So we're going to start with Twitter. I can't remember if I actually remember to ask this one last time or not. It was in my DMs from Sean Seabolt. May have been that, but, we'll do it again. Why not? Which one of the players traded at the deadline has played the best since leaving the Ducks? So by process of elimination, I'm just going to say Josh Manson because Lindholm and Raquel are hurt.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah. All right. And then we got this one from Logan Maxwell over the weekend. I believe he is Australian. So he had
3-1 Kings. Holy.
There you go. He said, question for the pod. Have only been following the Ducks for a couple of seasons, and since they haven't made the playoffs in any of them, I haven't bothered to watch playoff hockey. This season, though, I've been watching every game of the playoffs, and I feel like I'm watching a different league. Fair dinkum. I hope that's an Australian phrase that isn't offensive in any way. The intensity is insane, and these boys aren't taking the piss. The checking is on another level, and players are spitting the dummy and having a whinge at each other left, right, and center. Basically, my question is, why the bloody hell don't they play like this through the regular season? If they did, would coaches be telling them to pull their heads in? I'm not complaining at all. Oh, go ahead.
Playing like this is really, really hard and tiring. And you can't do it. Like, watch more of the playoffs and just check the injury reports when it's all said and done after the Stanley Cup final is over.
Yeah.
These guys are playing through all sorts of pain, all sorts of injuries, and it's just not something you can sustain for 82 games. It sucks because when hockey is played in this manner, at 100%, 110%, there's no sport to me that's more entertaining.
Yeah,
that I've seen.
Well, it's also just deadlines make people play in a different way.
Yeah, and so it just sucks that we don't get anything close to this for most of the regular season. Now, of course, watching the Anaheim Ducks the last 2 years, you definitely don't. But I do wish there was a way. I mean, I'm in favor of reducing the number of games in the regular season because I think that's what the guys need is rest. They need less games to have to play to show you something like this.
You want my solution?
Hold on. I go back to this all the time. The reason the NFL is so entertaining is because every single game feels like it matters.
Yeah. You want my solution?
Continue. Mm-hmm.
Make the President's Trophy that
No.
weighted more.
No.
You didn't even let me finish.
I know. Okay, continue.
You weight the President's Trophy more, and you make it on an equal level in terms of just how people view it, and let everyone into a knockout round playoff.
No. Next.
Okay, fine. I don't love
I like the Stanley Cup playoffs.
I do too.
Like, I like everything about it.
I'm just throwing stuff out there to be like, let's see how this works.
I wish that
one probably isn't my best though. I'll give you that.
I wish it didn't devalue the regular season though, which I think is what you're getting at. I wish that we gave more respect to the regular season champs.
Because I think if that happened, then you would see these types of games happen more.
But the reason why we don't give it that much as much respect is because the regular season can be really boring, long, and tedious.
True.
It doesn't feel that like a big deal to finish first for whatever reason, and so less games. I mean, okay, if hockey teams played one game a week, like the NFL does, do you think that would work?
No.
Like, just from an entertainment perspective, or is, let's say 2 games a week better?
I think 2 games a week.
I think 3 to 4 games is just crazy.
Yeah. I think 2 games would make sense. All right.
Yeah.
Here we go. This one from William Lewis. Not asking you to get into this draft class, but presumably Verbeek goes best available for the first rounders. What do you think he's evaluating? Speed, shot, creativity, or shutters, size, and grit when he makes that judgment? If team need comes into the formula, what is he shooting for?
Well, according to Corey Pronman, it would appear to be about size, which we would dispute. I mean, he did talk about, the importance of physical strength. He did talk about the fact that that's a key component for any playoff team. And so I could see him really valuing that, but I still really think that Martin Madden is a key player here. And I think that we should definitely be remembering how he has drafted over the last few years. And I don't think it'll change that much. I think the Ducks are going to go for a guy who's going to be highly skilled, who can help the team in the near future, and maybe the physical maturity will play a bigger role. But I think you're going to see another great Martin Madden pick.
Yep. All right. Now we're going to get into our Discord. So our Patreon Discord, for anyone, go to patreon.com/scratchthespawn. If you pay $1, you get access to Discord. If you do more than that, you still get access to Discord and some other stuff that we'll go over later. JJ Stoned Drum says, do you think Verbeek will use any of his many picks to move up in the draft?
It's possible, but I think in this draft, I don't really see it just because, like we were talking about in the top of the show, it's just so wide open.
Yeah.
Just let someone fall to you.
Yep. Olaf is Berserker said, thoughts on gold drafting? I'm not quite sure what he's talking about, but maybe he's talking about the gold idea for drafting, which is that essentially the team that has accumulated the most points after being mathematically eliminated from the playoffs drafts first overall.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
I don't love it. The main reason for that is that the whole thought process behind the draft is to help bad teams get better.
Yeah.
And so while, yes, theoretically you're giving these bad teams more opportunities to get points, and I don't think that it's necessarily the best way to go about it, because, I mean, the way that if you have UFAs and you move them out, you're going to be worse after that. And so then maybe that's the thing. Then do teams hold on to them? Probably not. They shouldn't. They should get whatever they can. I just don't like the concept of that overall. I think it's an interesting idea. I mean, personally, I say just, if you're going to do a draft, eliminate the lottery.
Yeah.
Like, the concept of a draft is, when you think about just the overall concept, it's to make bad teams better, to give them the best players. And so why do you have a lottery that's counter to that?
Well, but the idea of the lottery is so that teams aren't intentionally being bad, knowing that they're guaranteed a better pick, a great pick, but based on where they finish in the standings.
I mean, if you're the worst team in the league, you're still guaranteed third overall.
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't make a huge difference.
I'm not saying I disagree with you.
It's just thinking about the thought process of it. Draft is to make bad teams better. Why are we then making them fall a little bit as a result? Just give them.
By the way, Minnesota Wild on the verge of elimination.
No, it's 2-2.
Or is it? I thought it was 3-2.
No, it's 2-2.
Blues won tonight.
Well, now, is the game over?
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's going on.
Okay, did I just get duped?
It's 4-2 right now, though, and
4-2. It's okay. Sorry. So they're likely gonna.
Correct.
Okay, sorry. Likely gonna be ahead 3-2.
Will you give me my flowers?
Speaking of flowers, Marc-Andre Fleury on that fourth goal, just standing still as Vladimir Tarasenko.
As Marc-Andre Fleury is wont to do at times.
Yeah, that is intriguing. To think about.
Who picked the Blues to win this series and got a lot of crap about it?
I mean, I still think that my Wild can pull through.
They can, but who got a lot of crap for saying the Blues are going to be in the series and it's going to be tight?
I don't know. Who?
I wonder who also said that the Capitals wouldn't win a game.
Hey, I got one of my sweeps right. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's the one that the Avs should have won in 3.
Look, credit to the Capitals, but the Panthers winning last night was pretty huge.
Yeah, definitely. A Taco Pie asks, how good is the TNT crew? They've been really fun.
I haven't watched that many of their intermissions during the playoffs, so I can't say for sure right now. But my thing with TNT, though, is it's a tale of two cities. It's two sides to a coin, which is I think that their in-game can be really hit or miss, particularly when it's kind of like the NBCSN crew.
So I think that it's funny because I guess on the broadcast side, you're probably right in terms of game broadcast. I think Taco Pie is more so saying the intermission group.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying is that it's a tale of two cities in that I think that the in-game is really hit or miss, but I think that the intermissions have been fun like almost every single time.
Yeah, and I think that's more so what people are talking about. And it's funny because it's the same crew or a similar crew with Liam McHugh, same guy that did it for a long time. You've got Anson Carter there. It's pretty similar, but then you just kind of add in Biz. You add in.
I think there's some pretty massive changes.
True,
though.
Wayne Gretzky, yeah, and I think Wayne Gretzky has been really good. Also, I did not expect him.
Rick Tocchet,
also been good.
He's getting better.
Yeah,
I think that they went through this phase during the season where they were trying really hard to be like the fun broadcast, and it was almost cringy. And now they're finding a little bit of a balance of like serious versus fun.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's been good.
Yeah.
I mean, my only thing with Gretzky is I'd like to see him be more unleashed because you can just tell half the time everything is like a little bit of column A, column B.
Yeah.
And I know that he can't fully speak his mind because people just hang on to every word he says. But I would like to see him be more unleashed a little bit.
The one thing that I found interesting is I feel like
But he is good, though. This isn't taking away from him.
And I think that whoever they've been having doing interviews also does a really good job, whichever series, whichever game it is. And I actually also think ESPN with Emily Kaplan has been doing a really good job with that also. And I think that there was
TBS.
What?
TBS has also been good, but
well,
I think that's
just
the
TNT. That's the same.
Yeah.
And there was one interview that happened, I think, with Ian Cole specifically, where it was on the bench. And whoever it was that was between the benches did the interview with him, and I can't remember what it was TNT or ESPN, but it was just like a really kind of well thought out interview with Ian Cole giving really good answers also, which is I guess a really important part of it. But it was one of the most interesting intermission interviews I've seen of a player. The answers that were given, the questions that were asked, and it was just really good.
Yeah, I think the broadcasts in the playoffs have been such a breath of fresh air. It's just been so much fun. The staggered
starts have been so good. The fact that it's so easy to find on ESPN and ESPN2 or TBS and TNT. Like, it's not a struggle, like, figuring out if it's on USA or NBC.
God. Golf Channel?
Yeah. Bravo.
Remember when that was a thing?
Yeah. All right. Marty asked, do we see Zegras and Co. playing this time of year next year?
Do they make the playoffs?
I'm bold take here. Yes.
Oh, look, Evander Kane sucker punched someone.
God,
that's
he's
great.
the worst.
Why is he in the NHL?
It hurts whenever someone tries to give him credit, and it's just like, please.
It's just like we don't have to do this.
Yeah.
Like we just don't have to do this. Will they be in the playoffs next year? I'm gonna say no.
I'm going yes.
I think they'll be in the hunt though.
All right. Olaf is Berserker asks, based on what we've heard from him so far, if you had to create a profile for a type of player you expect Verbeek to take in the draft as option, or the first part, and the second part is
it wasn't Kane. Cassian just completely cross-checked jersey in the back.
Also a trash player.
Yeah.
So basically, if you had to create a profile for a type of player that Verbeek would take in the draft for part 1 and part 2 is target in free agency or traded over the summer, what are those players?
So who are we targeting in the offseason? That's the question.
In the draft and then in free agency or the offseason.
Yeah, so who's sticking out for you when it comes to the draft right now at 10th? Brad
Lambert. By the way, I may throw on the Angels game on my thing because I've just been made aware of something happening.
Oh?
I'll let you keep going though.
What is happening?
We can't say.
What?
Can't say.
Why can't this be said? Okay, so in the draft at 10th overall, is it pronounced Nazar or Nazar? For Frank.
Do not know.
Frank N. If Frank N from the United States is available at 10, he's a guy to be really curious about just because of his, first off, just the fact that he skates so well, his hand-eye coordination, just everything there. That's the kind of player that I think the Ducks could really benefit from having. And then I've said it all along. I'll keep saying it, though. I think Kevin Fiala, I don't know if there's a way for the Ducks to get him. Maybe the Wild losing this series would help that. But just really try to hit a home run. I know that Pat Verbeek kind of wants to just build out the depth of his roster, which they need to do, but try to hit a home run.
Yep, exactly. Looks like there is a position player pitching for the Rays right now, and it is 12-0 Angels.
Oh, good. Wait, who is the guy that did that for the Angels?
No, he did it for the Twins against the Angels.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
William Astudillo. Was that on the Patreon episode where I brought that up and you started looking that up? That was great. That was great.
That was so good. Not Philip Forsberg. It's being asked in the chat. No. That's the exact kind of contract you need to avoid.
All right. So for those of you in Twitch, please throw any questions that you've got into the Twitch chat. But I should do this first. Go to YouTube. Find us on youtube.com/correspondent. If you're watching us there, you can join us live each and every Monday. Typically, although this week we're on Tuesday, but typically Mondays at 8 p.m. at twitch.tv/crashpond, where you can help support the show. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime gaming sub each and every month. You do have to hit that subscribe button after 30 days. It does help support this show more than you can imagine. This isn't a question that was asked as a question, but I'm just going to put it out there. Do you think it pisses people off that the Kings are in the playoffs and the Ducks aren't?
Who's the people we're referring to?
Ducks fans.
Our listeners?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure. I would be pissed too. But that being said, I think that the Kings give you a little bit of a blueprint, though, of how the Ducks are going to get back there because they built up their roster through the draft. Then last summer, right, they did the moves to kind of get them back into that hunt. They got Arvidsson, they got Danault, and now they're back to a baseline, right? And a lot of it is contingent on the play of their older guys, which will eventually fade. But the idea is that their younger players will catch up at that point. The Ducks don't quite fit that mold, but it's the same kind of blueprint, though, that they're following.
Yeah.
So looking at the Kings should give you some optimism if you're a Ducks fan.
Yep. So it actually looks like the Twitch chat is kind of quiet, and part of that is because of this Angels game and the nothing that's happening at all. Nothing at all besides it being 12-0. And so I'm going to let you steer the ship to the finish line as I watch this part of it.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. This was a fun show this week, and hopefully everyone is having a fun offseason. Hopefully everyone is enjoying the NHL playoffs. As you can tell, we are. It's kind of hard to keep your eyes off.
Oh, wait. We actually do have one question, so I'll bring this to you. This came from Sith Lord Buscemi. We had two of them, and I missed them. My bad. Sith Lord Buscemi said, how do you guys feel about taking and or trading for players with illness/health concerns, i.e. Rodion Amirov and Ivan Miroshnichenko?
Yeah, I mean, if the price is right, sure.
Yeah. And I think it just depends. I think the teams wouldn't want to trade him in those health conditions, though. They want to have stability for him. And B. Doddle said, question, hypothetical, you're the GM of the Ducks, and Leon Draisaitl gets put on the block after a first-round exit. What do you offer to get him, and would you?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Do you even think about it?
You kick the tires at least, but it's probably going to be Zegras, Drysdale, McTavish.
It's going to set the Ducks back to do that.
Yeah.
It's going to set them up for mediocrity, so I just wouldn't do it at all.
Yeah.
No. Sorry.
Yep, exactly. All right, now you can steer the ship to the finish line.
Yep. So if you've been enjoying our show, there's a few ways to support us. The number one way is through our Patreon, patreon.com/crashthepond. Over there, you can pay $1 a month, pledge $1 a month, and you get access to our patrons-only Discord server. It's a ton of fun. You get to connect with other diehard Ducks fans, talk about breaking news, talk about the NHL playoffs. I think right now is a great time to join, actually. But we have other channels. For example, all of our bad food takes. We've got a food channel there, although my takes are good. Should be very clear about that. My takes are great, infallible. That's for $1 a month. If you bump that up to $5 a month, though, you get access to 2 bonus episodes. So we did one earlier in the month doing our preview, our predictions for each first-round series. We're going to keep that one going over the next few weeks as each round gets wrapped up. That's for $5 a month. And you can also pledge $15 a month as extra level of support. And that's all at patreon.com/crashthepond. You can also leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you do so, well, first off, it's going to help out the show quite a bit. It's totally free to you. It takes maybe 30 seconds to do. And if you leave a review, we'll read it on the show. You can also leave us a rating on Spotify. Jake's already said it, but find us on YouTube, youtube.com/crashthepond. Subscribe to us there. Turn on the notifications so that you know when we are posting. And check out our website, crashthepond.com. You can go to crashthepond.com/shop. We've got t-shirts with our awesome logo. We've got coffee mugs. We've got stickers. We've got it all, hoodies even. And that's all at crashthepond.com/shop. At crashthepond is on Twitter. Jake is on Twitter at reindeergames91. And I'm on Twitter at Felix_Sicard. That's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll talk to you next week. Have a good one.
Bye.